Hello guys, this is leathertoolz. Today I'm going to talk about Chartermade knives. I have 6 of them in front of me. I'm going to talk about what's the difference between each of them and what you really need in each application. And I'm going to just talk about tools, basically what you really need to do with a certain type of tools. So we have 6 knives here, and I'm sure this is all of the knives they are currently offering at the moment in the Chartermade collection. And I am a very big fan of Chartermade because they are high quality tools in terms of aesthetics and also this technical aspect as well. They are very well made tool in order to use them. Their heat treatments are top notch. I can assure that these knives are highly well made tools. They are not just for the looks, for their steel and the heat treatment, they are really good. So let's talk about it. So in front of the video, before I talk about these knives, I showed you how I use them, and obviously it was more like a cutting demonstration. Obviously, I know, but then I do have a lot to talk about. So I just really need to show you very briefly about how are they used. I'm going to explain it in words. So let's talk about these 2 knives first. So basically, if you haven't seen, or if you haven't really been in the scene for a long time, this brass holder is from France. This is from other brand. This brass holder is from a company called Berger Blanchard, but Chartermade sells this type of replacement blade. This is made of D2 steel, and it has this flat side, flat, and this has this edge side. This is a bevel side. So this flat and bevel. So for this blade, you can insert this to this holder, and then you screw down this screw in order to make the blade tight enough to use it. So you need to have this type of brass holder. You need to have it, or you need to buy it. Of course, if you have it already, then you only need to buy a blade. If you don't, obviously you need to buy this brass holder. Depending on where you are, you can get this pretty much high-end leathercraft tool store. So for this type of blade, I use mainly when I try to cut straight lines with a ruler. So the ruler that I demonstrated was this type of Italian ruler that I use a lot. So when you cut stuff, you want to make really a straight line. You just need to have this flat side against this ruler, and then you can just cut it like this. So when you need a straight line that is as straight as an arrow, then you need to use this type of knife. This is the main purpose for it. For this type of single bevel, if you try to freehand cut, your cut tends to a little bit awkward. So I don't really recommend using it. Although you can do it, but I don't use it like that. So this is just for the straight cut with a ruler. This is all I can say. This knife is called trim knife. This is, you can chop down big piece of leather into smaller pieces. From your stock, in order to bring out your workbench, you need to cut down your leather. To do that, you need to have this kind of rough cut with your knife, and it comes in handy because it's almost like a utility knife in your hand. It's just you can chop down big leather into small leather. That is the main purpose of it. Second purpose is that you can freehand cut into a really rough shape into a finer shape. So what I mean is that if you have a big piece of leather, let's say bigger than this workbench, you can cut down into small pieces like that, and then you can lay it on a piece, and then you can also trim it according to your needs. So for example, so for example, this is your pattern, then you can just chop down like this, and then you start to cut it on your pattern like that. So it is a handy knife. It's an extra knife, I should say. This is not a total necessary if you don't want to have it in your collection or you use. But then this comes in handy. We really want to chop down a big piece of leather, just slice it through. It's a great slicer. I should say it's a great slicer. Second thing, Some people like to use this type of knife for their main knife. What I mean is that these three knives, I mean four knives, for example, without this one, this is more like a paring knife. Yeah, more like, so you have other cutting options like these four, including, let's say this one is including five. Some people don't like to use this type of a brass knife. It's kind of extra also, and it's not really it's not some people's cup of tea. So with the price of these, I mean, it's you need to keep buying this blade, and just for some reasons, a lot of people like to just like a pencil. So some people like to just cut it with their main knife, and they like to cut it like the draw cut knife. For some people, this becomes their main knife. Each persons are different. Some people like to use Japanese leather knife. Some people like to use this pattern knife. It's all different. So I can't say which knife is the answer for your main knife. But then some people like to use this knife as a main knife, so that they are better. Feels better to just cut it on their own using this knife. So it's up to you really. It cuts beautifully. It has such a thin edge. It's a razor sharp. If you sharpen it correctly, this will serve you a very long time. This could be your main knife if you really like it. I like this knife. It's a very thin slicer. So this knife, this will be really one of the Chartermade signature blade. It looks like almost a round knife. This is called pattern knife. You can all purchase them through chartermade.com, their website. And this pattern knife, it's really a multi-purpose. So because it has a really long, sort of a round blade, you can rock it to cut it. And using this rocking motion, you are not pulling or dragging. So you are minimizing this type of pulling cuts, when you cut thin leather or stretch leather. So, for example, stretch leather, I mean by this type of chrome tan leather, this type of shrunken piece of leather. And this type of knife, if you're trying to pull cut, I did it intentionally, but then I tried to really maximize this pulling motion. Let's say I try to do this. It doesn't happen. Pull motion, let's say I tried this one. Yeah, so this is what happens if you really get the pull effect. It kind of gives you this type of this type of, what do I call it? This type of a curvature. You can see it. This happens because it pulls out when you try to cut with your knife. It just stretches leather when you're cutting. But because it's a round motion, and you can at the end you can just rock it, you're minimizing your pulling. So push it. At the end, just rock it. So that's how you cut. You get cut like this. So it's easy to cut. It's fun to cut. The main reason why people use this type of pattern knife is that you can make this extreme curve because it has quite a stiff angle, and it has a very fine tip. So it's almost like you are cutting with a wire cutter if you have it with your steel. So I'll show you. Let's say you are cutting a big curve. So let's say no. So you can do that with your trim knife. You can also use the tip portion in order to cut this intricate cut. When you're trying to meet this type of rectangular motion, it's really difficult to adjust with the tip, so that you use your front tip. So what I mean is that, for example, you're trying to cut a corner, let's say small square. So how you do it is you use your tip, sort of a pen knife. So this is how you make a square cut into your leather, like this. So you could utilize your tip to make this type of square into a leather. To use this tip at the end to do this is kind of tricky. It's difficult and it looks actually on the video. So yeah, that's why it is used. The other purpose is actually without a ruler, this won't be exactly straight as you do it with a ruler. I mean, you could do it like this always with your ruler. Your ruler is straight. So with this knife again, you cut like this. Yeah, so you get a straight, relatively straight cut line with this type of ruler. Sorry, knife. You can mimic this without a ruler, so that you can cut it long surface. I mean long strikes without a ruler. So ruler has this limit. So it has, this one is about 40 centimeters long, I think. But you need to have a really long ruler. You need to cut straight line. But then if you have this type of knife, let's say without a ruler, I will try to cut it straight as possible. You start, and then you dig your knife as much as possible. Now your knife itself becomes the reference, and then you just push, you push, you just push, push until the end. Yeah, so you cut a straight line. So this is not an exact method to cut a straight line, but then it works. So when you need to cut straight line, this is also a very useful tool. It's a pattern knife. Now, so the other one, I've talked about this knife a lot, but if I explain in words, this knife is for making a skived cut. So this is the piece that I made during the video. What really differentiates this type of knife with this one, especially a lot of people ask me, is that it's a different way of skiving. So guys, this knife, this Chartermade original knife, is trying to bring the same result with a bell skiver, with a skiving machine that has a round blade. So it has this type of step down skiving. So flat, down, flat. So this type of a flat, down, flat. This type of skiving. This is the result that you get from this knife. So this type of result is you get from this type of knife. So it's a different result. You could get this type of result with this knife, but it is extremely difficult because of this geometry. Yeah. So that is the main difference if I put it shortly. So if you want to get this type of step skiving, you need this knife. Yeah. This is the knife that you should get. Now, for this knife, however, it's much easier to get this type of a skiving to flat skive. So this could be a many application, watch straps or belt. You can just do this type of flat skiving. This is called lap skiving. It has a much longer flat straight line than this one. So if you have a wider area to skive on, it's much more effective. So you can just have this average of a total length of a straight line, to just skive it down. This was very tough Barania leather. It's a chrome tan leather. You can see this two different layer has been cut, sliced very finely. You see a difference there. So when you glue this together, it's almost seamless. In order to do this perfectly, you need to do it really thin skive down. So that's another thing. But then you get the point what you do with this type of knife. If you are trying to buy only one knife, I think it's better to buy this knife, because you can utilize the small portion, flat portion, and you can do this with this knife also as well. But you can't do this type of thing. You can't really do this easily like that. So if you want to buy one, I would recommend you get this one first and then this one. Yeah, so that is the difference. Yeah. So this Japanese skiver, Japanese knife. People call it skiver a lot for this knife, but I call it Japanese knife. This knife, what really it's good for this knife with a different cutting action from these two type of blade is that this knife is really good with cutting thick vegetable tan leather effortlessly. So let me show you. You need to, and I don't say need to, I mean, it's better to have this type of Japanese leather cutting mat. It's okay if you don't. Let me not do it then. Let me not use this mat. But let me just use this type of normal cuttings first, because let's make this cutting performance similar. Yeah. So this knife, it's a thick piece of vegetable tan leather. This is more like a 3-4 millimeter vegetable tan leather. Yeah. And it cuts so effortlessly with this knife. So just dig in like that. So with a Japanese Japanese type of technique, you can just cut it like that without any problem. Yeah, it's so easy. I mean, you could cut this leather with this knife as well, but it's much more force because you need to push down with your finger and your wrists. You have to push down a little bit harder. This one, you lock in your wrists and then you pull it with your arm. That's why it's easier. So this is why if you're using a lot of vegetable tan leather, it's so much better to use this knife and so much easier to cut, because how strong these edges are to cut against this very heavy duty thick leather. So also this type of soft type shrunken chrome tan leather as well. It's a thick piece of leather, but then see how smooth it cuts. It just cuts beautifully. It just cuts really nice. It is one of my highly prized knife. It is a fine work piece, and it's a fine workhorse tool. The other benefits you get from this Japanese Japanese knife, you can just push down and you get the straight lines, small straight lines I should say. So push, boom, yeah, straight cut, because this edge is straight. So boom, push, cut. So this is another benefit. So you can just get, yeah, you can get flat line, flat line, flat line like that. Vegetable tan leather also big, but then again, so it just cuts beautifully, so easy to cut. So that's why if you are looking for cutting tools, 3 are really the nice option. If I would choose one, I will choose this one. If I choose this 2, I will choose this one. This will be I will choose this one as last, but still really handy. Now again, if I ever have to choose one, I will have to choose this one, and then I will make sure to buy this one. This one really is a good performer. I need this knife as well. So yeah, that's it. I was lucky to have this type of full set. I mean, these 4 all have the same material. This is all giraffe bone handle. It is a premium material from Chartermade. I like this type of South African theme for this type of knife. So this essential knife, 4 of the essential knife, this will be highly prized of my collection. I will use them for my leather work in the future as well. So if you are really into this leather craft and you are looking for to do this kind of fun project, if you really like to know how these tools are really used in work, please make sure to subscribe, and I will see you guys next video. Yeah, bye bye.